and welcome to Uprisings. I am here today with Willa, LeFevre, and Kim, and I don't know why, I just don't want to remember her last name. Kim, what is it again?
Jeter Anderson.
Jeter Anderson. And we are going to be talking about a topic that that is just very heavy on my mind, and I would like to share with the public. And I've asked Willa to come and help me discuss it as well as Kim. And that is the swine flu, and specifically the swine flu vaccinations. Now, I just saw an interview with a doctor from Australia who was the producer or developer of Thermoflu, which is some sort of liquid medication for the flu. And he was explaining that the flu has genes. There are genes to a flu, to a virus, and that he and his team had collected the information from the various sources where the flu had shown itself, the swine flu, and he tested it and indicated that would have come from swine in Eurasia, he said, and some other place, but he was talking about the genes. And they tested these genes and looked at them and realized that the way they were formed could have only occurred, in his opinion, in a laboratory. So the number one thing, and this course, for some reason, we're not hearing any of this in the mainstream press, but you can find reputable, I believe, information through using the internet, and I think a lot of the kids, thank goodness, are turning off television and going there. But this was a news report that was out of Australia, and then I read today that the Australian president is congratulating himself because he has enough of the swine flu vaccination for the entire Australian population. Now, Australia is about as big as the United States, but 80% of the people live along the coast because the interior is so uninhabitable. So they have just a few more people than we have in New York City in Australia, so it's not too hard to get enough vaccinations for them all. But it concerns me that you have a virus that apparently was produced in a laboratory, appearing in the spring of '09, and by the fall of '09, not 6 months later, we have everyone in the world is supposed to take this vaccination. And so I know that you two are involved in the healthy way of dealing with things, and I think, Kim, you've done some study on the effect of vaccinations in general, haven't you?
I have, and even though there is much research out there stating that vaccinations do not cause autism and some other side effects, I've always wondered why they don't put the information out there on the groups that they have studied that have not been vaccinated and have shown to have very little, if any, repercussions as they're growing older, as the children are growing older.
Okay, so I think, and this is the stuff that I have discovered from investigating, and I remember actually coming into Willa's store and saying, oh my gosh, it just sort of hit me like a ton of bricks, that I think it was around 1987, the vaccination of children went from like 9 vaccinations to 35 or something, and many people reported that the child at the 18 months would go and for the checkup and get some shots and then not be able to lift up their heads, and so there's a vast, and this isn't news, it's just that there's a lot of people who believe very strongly that the vaccinations that we are giving to our children now, baby vaccinations, are indeed causing significant problems with autism, Asperger's, the mercury in, I read Dr. Blaylock, I think
Right.
of whom you know, had written an article called The Truth About Vaccinations, and indicates that the mercury, in order to be safe under current safety guidelines of mercury, the baby would have to be 265 pounds for it not to cause some injury. So that topic in itself is a whole another thing, basically, although it does sort of segue into what's going on now. The government is mandating people taking this vaccination. Not just babies, but now they're talking about school children and health workers. As a matter of fact, just in this week, New York City has ordered all medical health personnel to take the vaccination, and there are protests going on up there where a pregnant woman, a nurse, said, when you were pregnant, when I was pregnant, they didn't want us to smoke a cigarette or drink a Coca-Cola or stay away from coffee and don't drink wine and all that stuff. And now they're telling pregnant women that they should be among the first in line to get this vaccination. Do you have any idea what's in these vaccinations?
Well, what I've read to date, and I've followed Dr. Blaylock mostly because he has a lot of information with the medical and the peer reviews. He gets a lot of his information from the CDC, and he even stated that the CDC believes that right now there's a lot to do about nothing. Right. That we do not have as many flu deaths in 2008 to 2009 as we had in the past, and that we really should just calm down and focus on getting ourselves a little bit healthier and in the right frame of mind. Right now it's all fear.
Yes.
One of the studies that Dr. Blaylock even cited was 51 studies have not, actually they've shown to date that any child under 2 years old should not receive the vaccination because it does not do any good for them at all. Matter of fact, it really suppresses their immune system.
You know, I'm sure people are just scratching their head, particularly those who, you know, I'll run into them all the time. I'll say, well, why would the government have us do something that would be injurious to us? And I'm not really sure what the answer is, except that I'm pretty sure that there isn't any reason for us to believe that they would do anything that is good for us. I mean, so far, we really don't get a benefit. I mean, it's the more powerful the government, the less powerful the people. And I was pleased, by the way, to see that the Campaign for Liberty, as a gentleman I had interviewed earlier, was a part of this protest up in New York. And I've read too that this may be, this mandating vaccinations of everyone, or mostly everyone, may just be the shot in the arm to the fight for liberty the liberty movement that is also coming to the fore. So we are living in interesting times, scary but interesting times. One of the things that you mentioned was fear. First of all, let's do this. Dr. Blaylock, first, could you give us a better idea of who he is and what his background is?
He was a neurologist, actually, for a lot of years, and he had studied neurological disorders after children have been vaccinated, even a lot from the 1976 vaccinations and how it has affected women and the children from those women, has increased the rate of ALS, increased the rate of lupus, diabetes 1 in children, of MS. So we do see a lot of repercussions from the administering of vaccines. Dr. Blaylock actually cited another 30-year study, a 30-year study that proved that getting the flu shot did not decrease hospitalizations nor deaths during flu seasons. Mm-hmm. So he really felt that he was qualified to give all this information out, stating that in his opinion, and after reading all the peer journals, that we really should not be put in a state of fear and all accept the vaccines.
Right. Well, whether it's an acceptance or, I mean, what I'm hearing is that they are going to mandate the taking the vaccination, and you could say, no, I don't want to take it, and then they are going to offer you some sort of confinement. Now that could be, I don't know in what way, but I read this morning, this very morning, that the head of the military is saying all military personnel will be required to take the vaccination, and that American military personnel is being dispatched around the country to help to aid local authorities. So one has to wonder what a man with a gun is required for if it is simply a, your choice whether you want to take it or not. So we have, a lot to talk about. One of the other real issues is how can a illness that shows up in the spring have a safe vaccination for it not more than a half a year later? And not only that question, but how is it that the whole world is mandated to take this vaccination? These are, sort of don't drink the Kool-Aid kind of questions, but what is the point? One has to follow the money, however.
Amen.
And
yeah.
Each shot is going to cost something, and some organization, the vaccination organization, the company, which apparently is co-owned by an individual who also works for the CDC. So, it is when government and business collude that the people are really injured. And I think that's the one thing that we need to remember. But when we come back, we're going to take a break. But when we come back, I think what I'd like to discuss with you is things that can be done if you are forced. I mean, these people are being told either you take this vaccination or you do not work. So what can people do to, we'll talk about the side effects and what they can do to offset them. So I encourage you, please, to come back and listen to the rest of the conversation. It's a very interesting topic to me, and I think important for all of us. So thanks for joining Uprisings. Welcome back to Uprisings. I'm with Willa and Kim. I'm not even bothering with the last names. So sue me. And we were talking about the swine flu, the suggestion that we have some epidemic, and the requirement. And I think what I am learning, and they're talking about doing, is going into the schools and vaccinating the children there, which will sort of an end run around the parents, who would do probably everything they could if they were really investigated it, would not let their children get this vaccination. I also actually read a position paper by the RAND Corporation. Now, the RAND Corporation does policy papers for the government, for corporations. And in this RAND Corporation paper, it actually suggested to the pharmaceuticals that the best way to get to a population that is not vaccinated, but that they could, identify, are children on public assistance, children on the CHIP program, children on getting the medical coverage through the government. And I'm thinking, well, that's a lot of kids, and that's a lot of kids that they know about. I'm wondering if this rush to this health care isn't to get all the whole list of everyone, because we would all have to participate. And then what would be the thing? You must take this vaccination or you will have no medical treatment at all. I mean, I can just, now again, I'm trying not to drink the Kool-Aid, but let's talk about, again, I think I asked you this. Do you know what is supposedly in this vaccination?
Well, from what I could gather, of course, they have the virus in there, but they have adjuvants that are in there, as in mercury, aluminum, and squalene.
What is an adjuvant?
It helps to get the virus into the body. If you look up adjuvant, it's like helping, assisting. So they put it in there. Unfortunately, all the safety studies that have been done to date, which aren't very many, are done on the vaccine without the adjuvants in there. So what they'll do is they'll show you a safety study with just the virus itself, and then when they're ready to put the vaccine out there, they will add those in.
But why, I'm not sure, why did they do it that way? I mean, I understand, I think I understand that mercury is a preservative of some sort.
Right.
So if they fill up a bunch of vials and have to ship them all over the world, the mercury helps keep it okay. And I think we said earlier that the mercury that was, I think they stopped having mercury in the children's vaccinations in 2002 in the United States. They kept the ones that were going to Africa, the mercury in. But that mercury, the amount that was in the vaccinations, again, the kid would have to be 265 pounds for it to be safe. So they're talking again now, this back to the mercury that's going to be in these vaccinations.
Injected right in. And I just listening to Dr. Blaylock, he said because they're trying to do this so quickly that the virus itself will be in such minute quantities that they need other things to fill up the vaccine.
Okay.
And so they will just use those fillers in the vaccine. It could be formaldehyde, could be the mercury, the aluminum, I think polysorbate 80 is in there. Trying to remember everything else that's in there.
Do you know, I think, I mean, you talked about working for a neurologist, and Dr. Blaylock is a neurologist. I saw a video that was produced from some university in Belgium or something. It showed a brain stem and how the brain stem grows and flourishes. And then they showed it being attacked by mercury, and it just falls apart. I mean, this is a laboratory demonstration. And I think that people, I mean, I know I really haven't attended to it. I do know that if you have too much wine, your head pounds, you've done something to your brain cells. What's going on? And of course we know, again, so little really about the operation of the brain. But many of these items that you're talking about attack the brain.
They do. They cross the blood-brain barrier and they attack the brain and create degeneration of the brain.
And so I again just read that we are having record numbers of people with Alzheimer's disease. Yet, is it possible that they're the ones that are getting the flu shot one day and the next day not, recognizing
it's
lima beans
absolutely,
from corn?
Absolutely possible.
So this is what Dr. Blaylock, and I keep using his name, but there are others. I was just watching Fox News. I mean, that's mainstream as you get. And a young doctor was saying, they said, well, are you going to take it? And he said, no. Are you going to give it to your children? He said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And he was saying the exact same thing that you are saying now, listing the adjuvants.
Yeah,
that's what
adjuvants.
it's called. Explaining how each aluminum affects brain and memory. Mercury affects, mercurical personality is someone who is volatile. These various chemicals can cause a lot of problems, including, one presumes, death.
Yeah, and one thing too is when When you inject a virus into the muscle, you get an altogether different response from the immune system than if you were building your immune system via maybe taking something in, ingesting it wise. Because if you would take something in through the body, a virus through the body, you have your digestive system that protects you from that. And then it kind of alerts the whole body, and the body goes into, you know, let's get rid of that virus. But now you're injecting it right into the muscle, and it's really causing a lot of problems because the body looks at it as something altogether different.
Oh, I see. So that's why you basically, if you get the flu, you throw up.
Yeah, to get rid of it.
Your digestive system is saying, get the heck out of here. And the same thing with the other side.
Or you have a fever and you sweat it out, or you have runny nose, you have mucus. That's the body's way of getting rid of it. But how does it get rid of something that's being injected into the muscles?
That's a good question.
You
Do
know,
we know the answer?
Well, you know, I think we're all becoming much more aware of the ingredients in our food. We're becoming very conscious of what am I really eating. Let's be fully aware of what it is that we're agreeing to. And I think this is so important. You know, what are the ingredients in there? Why are they added? What do they do? Because as Kim says, it's not that you're just swallowing it. You're just literally injecting it right into. So I think we need to be as diligent, if not more, about what we're allowing to have injected into us as those things that we put in our mouths.
Well, I think one of the reasons I really wanted to do this particular show is because I also want to, first of all, I do not want to spread fear. Yeah. I think that fear is like stress. It beats the body down anyway. And be not afraid. Where does that come from?
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Well, that's Winston Churchill. I like Jesus Christ better. He's the one that says, be not afraid. And
absolutely.
I think that that's very important.
The thing I feared has come upon me. And that's scriptural. The thing I feared has come upon me.
Okay, so we're not going to be in fear.
No,
but what
we're going to
do,
make educated, we're going to make well-informed decisions based on good, balanced information.
So
How's
this
that?
is the one that and this is the one piece of information that I found very interesting and sort of connecting dots. I saw an interview with Dr. Blaylock in which he explained there are different, he says, what if you have to take the shot?
Right.
What do you do? So we're going to first agree among us that the very first thing that we will do before we even get to the shot is make sure, like you, we exercise, we eat well, and we rest. Get our body and get the sun and get ready to be as healthy as we possibly can, period.
And you know what else, Muriel, is I don't even entertain the idea that I'm going to get the flu.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's not part of the health.
The fear I'm talking about is the fear of being stuck with a needle more than the flu itself. So the other thing, though, and I'm going to ask you to address these various things, but one thing that he said that we should stay away from is corn products, something to do with suppressing the immune system. Now, go to another a concern of mine. It has been and continues to be this obesity epidemic is related to the use of high fructose corn syrup in all our foods. So everybody who is watching, please read the labels of the food you're purchasing. High fructose corn syrup has the ability apparently to suppress your immune system. And if your children are going to get vaccinated, you don't want them to have food in them that's going to help make matters worse, right? Right? Okay, so I needed to get that out. So let's talk about the things. If you have to take this vaccination, if it's at the point of a gun, if it's done when you don't know about it to your child, or if you can only work and in order, you have to take it in order to work, for whatever reason, if you have to take it. What were some of the suggestions? Now, let's talk first. He says when you take all this stuff, it causes all sorts of activity in the brain.
In the brain, right.
So the suggestions are to counteract that activity or to reduce that activity. So tell us what that is.
Well, the first thing is to put an ice pack or a cold rag on the site. and to keep it on there until you see that the site has calmed down.
So the ice pack will reduce the activity of that.
Yeah, he said that is absolutely one of the best things that you can do to reduce the activity that comes along with it in the brain.
Isn't that it? And I think I read that he said for several days if you can't, just constant ice pack.
Aren't there also homeopathic? Can't we take something homeopathic? Not we, because I'm not going to do it, okay? I'll lay down my life before I do this. And I think we're called to, and I think we need to ask ourselves that question. Are we willing at some point to lay down?
But with 2 minutes left, we're going to have to really get to the homeopathic.
There's homeopathic remedies that you can take before.
Let's go.
I think
you probably could. I'm not that well versed in homeopathy.
Karen mentioned that at the store.
Yeah.
Karen Brown, who's very, very knowledgeable.
All right, but afterwards.
And then, so you do that before. Now you do an ice pack. What do you do next?
That's the question.
He also recommends curcumin,
which is
quercetin, and DHA oil, your omega-3 oils. And he was really, really adamant about getting your vitamin D, specifically D3. For children, at least 2,000 IUs a day, and for adults, at least 5,000 to 10,000 IUs a day.
Right. And I think there was more to the list. It seemed like quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'm going to presume that you all have the types of things that Dr. Blaylock is suggesting at Sonnewald's.
Yes.
So if anyone has any questions about this particular thing, they can get in touch with you and learn more. I mean, I stopped at the pediatrician's office because I have an exchange student. But anyway, and the woman just said these phone calls just keep coming from parents worried about this flu vaccination. So we're not alone. The three of us are not alone. We're together, and we're going to stay together and work together, and hopefully with the help from above, we are going to I don't know, be healthy and well. We're not going to be afraid, right?
And set the example.
And so I want to thank you so much for coming, and I want to encourage everyone who is listening and has any interest at all to check the website. And thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.